Have you ever wondered about the origins of the remote Pitcairn Island or the true story behind the infamous HMS Bounty mutiny? Two topics, seemingly unrelated yet intertwined in a fascinating historical tapestry. This is no ordinary tale, it's a saga of rebellion, survival, and the birth of a unique island community. A narrative that takes us far from the beaten path to a place almost untouched by time. Well, strap in as we journey back in time to uncover the history of Pitcairn Island and the HMS Bounty mutiny. Our tale begins in 1787 with the launch of the HMS Bounty from England. This was no ordinary voyage. The Bounty was on a mission commissioned by the Royal Society to sail halfway across the world to Tahiti, the goal to gather breadfruit plants with the intention of transporting them to the West Indies as a cheap source of food for slaves. The Bounty was a small vessel, just 91 feet long and 24 feet wide, but she carried a crew of 44 men. The conditions on board were cramped and claustrophobic. The men slept in hammocks slung between the ship's cannons, and their daily rations of food was often no more than a piece of salted meat and a handful of hardtack biscuits. At the helm of this voyage was Captain William Bligh, a man of stern discipline and little patience for dissent. He ran a tight ship, enforcing harsh punishments for even the smallest infractions. His methods, while effective, did little to endear him to his crew. The seeds of discontent were sown, and over time they began to grow. Life on the Bounty was harsh. The crew worked long hours, often in dangerous conditions. They were constantly wet, cold, and tired. The food was poor, the water was rationed, and the discipline was harsh. As the months wore on and the Bounty sailed further from England, the crew became increasingly resentful of their captain. Whispers of mutiny began to circulate. The crew, led by Fletcher Christian, a master's mate on the Bounty, began to plot against their captain. The seeds of discontent had grown into a dangerous uprising. The tension on board the Bounty was palpable, the crew was divided, and the threat of violence was ever present. The tension reached a boiling point on the 28th of April, 1789, leading to one of the most infamous mutinies in maritime history. On that fateful day, a man named Fletcher Christian led a group of disgruntled sailors in a mutiny against Captain Bligh. It was a day like no other on the HMS Bounty. Tensions had been brewing for months, as the crew had grown increasingly disenchanted with their commander's harsh treatment. Fletcher Christian, a highly respected and influential figure among the crew, was at the forefront of this dissent. The seething resentment and discontent finally came to a head, leading to the infamous mutiny. Christian and his followers seized control of the ship, overpowering those who remained loyal to the captain. In the early hours of the morning, they forced Captain Bligh, along with 18 of his loyal crew members, into a small open boat. With only meager supplies and a sextant for navigation, they were set adrift in the vast South Pacific Ocean. It was a daring and dangerous act, a brazen defiance of maritime law that could result in severe punishment if they were caught. But the mutineers were not deterred. They had taken control of the Bounty and were now in command of their own destiny. The ship, once a symbol of oppression and tyranny, was now their vessel of freedom. The mutiny was a desperate gamble, a leap into the unknown, but it was a risk they were willing to take. Their next challenge was to find a safe haven, a place where they could evade the long arm of British justice. They needed a remote, uninhabited island, far from the usual shipping routes. They found what they were looking for in Pitcairn Island, a tiny speck in the vast Pacific, hidden by its isolation and anonymity. With the Bounty now under their control, the mutineers set course for a place they believed could offer sanctuary, the remote Pitcairn Island. This would be their new home, their refuge, their paradise, or their prison. Only time would tell. Their story, however, was far from over. It was just the beginning of a saga that would echo through the ages, a tale of rebellion, survival, and the indomitable human spirit. In January 1790, the Bounty reached Pitcairn Island, a place so remote and isolated it offered the perfect hideaway. The mutineers found themselves in a paradise untouched by the outside world. Imagine a place where the only sounds are the rustling of palm leaves, the lapping of waves against the shore, and the occasional call of a native bird. This was the life that awaited them on Pitcairn Island. They were not alone, though. The island was inhabited by a small Polynesian population, a people who had developed their own culture and way of life in isolation from the rest of the world. The arrival of the mutineers was a clash of cultures, but in time a strange symbiosis began to form. The mutineers and the Polynesians had to learn to coexist. They shared their knowledge and skills, each contributing to the survival of the community. The mutineers brought with them knowledge of seafaring, carpentry, and other skills learnt during their maritime careers. The Polynesians, in turn, taught the mutineers about the local flora and fauna, how to fish in the island's waters, and the secrets of surviving in this remote paradise. From this unlikely alliance, a new society began to take shape. The mutineers, who had once been outlaws on the high seas, became founding fathers of a new community. They built homes, cultivated the land, and established a society that was a unique blend of European and Polynesian cultures. This society was not without its challenges, though. There were power struggles, conflicts, and even cases of violence. But through it all, the community survived and evolved, adapting to the challenges of life on a remote island. The island's isolation, which had once been a refuge for the mutineers, became a defining characteristic of the society that was formed. Cut off from the world, the inhabitants of Pitcairn Island developed their own unique culture, a blend of their Polynesian heritage and the influences brought by the mutineers. Despite the turbulent beginnings, the descendants of the Bounty mutineers and the Tahitian people they brought with them still inhabit Pitcairn Island to this day, making it a fascinating piece of history frozen in time. So there you have it. The tale of the HMS Bounty mutiny and the birth of the Pitcairn Island community. We've journeyed through the tumultuous voyage of the Bounty, the audacious mutiny led by Fletcher Christian, and the daring escape to the remote Pitcairn Island. There, against all odds, they built a community that persists to this day, a testament to human resilience and adaptability, a tale of rebellion, survival, and settlement that continues to captivate us centuries later. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.